On this episode of the podcast, we're talking to Marisa Simonetti. She's a mom, an entrepreneur, and an aspiring politician from Minnesota. She's an interesting character all the way around who is a lot of fun and has some great knowledge to share with us. In this episode, we're going to pick her brain a little bit, and we're going to learn what makes her tick and learn some valuable insights along the way. Please help me welcome Marisa Simonetti. So, Marissa, thanks for joining me here. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Yeah, for sure. So you do a lot of stuff. I mean, you do real estate, politics, community engagement. You social media influencer, yeah. So
Yeah,
so
it's
you do all sorts
all
of stuff. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
well connected. So, but no,
Yeah.
Marissa, thanks for joining me here. Yeah,
Yeah, this is gonna be fun.
for
Yeah.
sure. So introduce yourself to the audience. How would you introduce yourself?
Well, my name is Marisa Simonetti. I'm a mother. I have a degree in psychology from the University of Minnesota. And throughout my 20s, I did social media, purchased rental property, and made the first time run for a local county board here in 2024. So that was
Interesting.
quite the change. You and I were kind of talking about all these political dynamics, and it's a
Sure.
learning curve. I mean, you found that.
Yeah, for sure. It really is. And you know, so Marissa, let's dive into this, and we'll get into the politics, the political aspirations stuff here in a minute. But one of the interesting things is you've done a lot of real estate ventures,
Yeah.
and I was wondering if you could tell me what in the heck inspired you to want to get into real estate.
So in my early 20s, I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And, my mom homeschooled me and my brother and my sister the whole way through. She was a stay-at-home mom, and my dad is very intelligent, a successful mechanical engineer. And Kiyosaki talked about the different mindsets. And I thought, you know what? I would like to have that financial freedom of my time. And so that really, I remember being probably 21, 10 years ago. And it's amazing how a little thought can shift your whole life.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let me ask you this. In the real estate game, that's a tough business. What challenges, especially as a very young person coming into real estate, what challenges did you face in real estate, and how did you overcome them?
So with when I read the Kiyosaki book, I was like, I'd like to own apartment buildings. And what you find is the barrier to entry is one, cash. But let's say you have the cash. You have 20%, 25% down on $1 million, 200, 250. I didn't at the time, but let's say you did. Then you have to find the property. You have to acquire it at the correct price. You have to understand how to manage it or hire the correct property management team. And so there's so many pieces to it that you could really just like lose your shirt if you don't know what you're doing. And the best deals never hit the market. So what I found was I was like, all right, you got to find people who are already doing it and leverage their knowledge and what they've done. So I had some single family houses, but my first bigger deal was part of one of these syndications with in 2019 with some of the local guys here who I knew and trusted their character. And once you do the first one, the rest goes.
For sure. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. You said that some of the best deals never hit the market. That's interesting. That's an interesting concept with so many different things, right? I mean, some of the
Yeah.
real gems, no matter what you do, they're not obvious, right? They're not
Yeah.
in the normal places, right?
Yeah.
So has that taught you anything to look beyond the surface level of things? I mean, now getting into your politics, right?
Mhm.
Has this experience taught you to look beneath the obvious, beneath the surface?
That's an incredible question. I've never considered it from that angle.
I think talking kind of transitioning into your political aspirations, your political career, I think, and this is just me talking, Marissa, but I think that as an investor, you talk about looking at these less obvious properties, these less obvious deals.
Yeah.
Do you think that maybe that's what we're doing politically? I mean, I don't know. What's your opinion? Do you think that's what we're doing as a society politically? We're latching onto the obvious, but it's the least obvious that maybe we should be paying attention to and we should be looking for.
In terms of like candidates per se.
Or anything, candidates, issues, or anything. Yeah.
Yeah, it does seem like in life I had a mentor who said there is signal and there's noise. And your job is to filter out the noise to get to the signal. And some of this noise people put out is intentional, because when you filter down to the core of like strategically and practically what's actually going on, it's not that hard. People like, even with law. So when I went back to finish my degree last year, I had about a little over a year left to graduate. My plan was to go to law school. And throughout that time, I took the LSAT and did all these things and learned. But a lot of law is so much noise. And when you filter it down, it's not that complicated, but it's intentionally complicated with words and random rules and procedures where, yeah, it's intentionally complicated.
I just read 2 great books, and I recommend anybody to read this. The first, and they're both by the same author, Justice Neil Gorsuch on the Supreme Court. I just read one of his book. The first one that I read was A Republic, If You Can Keep It. And then his second book, I forget the name of it right now. It's right off the top of my head, but anyhow, it's on my website. I have a link to it, but there's a couple of Neil Gorsuch books that I've been reading, and he talks about this, how the law is more about grammar than it is actually what is written. Yeah. It's how it's written. And he uses this one story in this book. He uses this one story about this man who was arrested and convicted under this law, and he was a fisherman, in like Louisiana or somewhere. And he was convicted under a financial crimes law for a game crime, like a wildlife fishing thing. And come to find out, he ended up being adjudicated off of this, like having it completely overturned because the law was just so vague, Yeah. And I think that sometimes, Marissa, when we're going through life and politics and everything else, it's interesting to hear from a conservative Supreme Court justice who was nominated by Trump to see that sometimes the real answer is not in the obvious, what we can see, it's below that. And
yeah,
one of the things I like to do with our guests on this show is try to get to the below the obvious level, right? Like, what are we trying to do? And you got into politics. I mean, you ran for commission up there for like the county level, I guess, right?
Yeah.
The obvious answer was you probably wanted to win and make some changes, but what really motivated you, Marissa, to want to get into politics? What was that motivation there?
Yeah. So it started out as a conversation with a friend. So I'm a mother, and there were just some different local complaints about the kids, the schools, crime. And I'm someone who's like, okay, either I'm going to stop complaining or I'm going to do something. And in this conversation, the weekend before the deadline to file for special election came up, well, there's this local position. It's vacancy because the other guy went to work at a nonprofit, and what does it take to run? $50. You go down and file the thing. I was like, something in my spirit pulled me forward and said, this is the way to go. It was undeniable, but I didn't know why. And it's been a adventure that I could never have planned to imagine since.
And you just, so the audience knows, you ended up not winning the election, right?
So the special election, there were 6 candidates. So there was a primary. Mm-hmm. And I came out of nowhere. This yo-ho Marisa Simonetti, I was the conservative ticket, but it was a nonpartisan race. Sure. I on purpose less than $750, and I made top 2. I beat someone who spent $71,000. And I was like, okay, the message is resonating. People want this. We got 2 weeks to close the deal. And the lady I was running against was a name recognized state rep, right? Known. And in that special election, I wound up only losing by 1,000 votes when only about 12,000 people out of 130 registered voters showed up. So I recognized that, okay, the message resonates. The problem here was marketing, and not enough people knew about it to get out and show support, because 1,000 is such small,
Very
but I
small
had no
margin.
experience and I didn't have the party's support after I made it through. Surprisingly, that's when most people stepped back
Yeah.
after I made it through, which is really interesting and surprising to me. So regardless of what happened there, I had to run again in November and make that decision. Was I going to invest my summer in going again? So I sat with myself for about a month and considered what it would take energetically from me, and do people actually want this? And I decided to run again.
And so let me ask you this. What do you think people want? What is it that Marissa thinks that the society wants that she has an answer for?
I mean, I kind of have two answers for this. I think what works is these sweet little lies and saying one thing and doing another. That's what I've really seen practically. Like, if you want to know what works, say the right thing and nod, smile, and shake the hands,
Yeah.
and then do what's in your own personal self-interest. What I'm hopeful and why I'm considering, why I'm going to run again in 2026 for statewide is you can feel the energetic shift of people looking for something more genuine and real, and feeling that difference. So I'm not a perfect person, but I am who I am. And when it comes time for that message to be received, I believe the way will be open.
You know, I tell people this all the time, especially my political clients when I consult on a political campaign. I always tell them the very first song that I tell them to listen to is, I call them into my office and we turn on Alanis Morissette, the song Baba.
Baba.
Okay. Baba. Yeah. It's a kind of a little known song, but it's like she's kind of hinting at this idea of this Indian guru, right? Named Baba, right? And she's talking about how everybody in India was like, how much more, Baba? What do I spend, guru? How much more money can I spend? What can I tell you? What will you do to absolve me? Right? You know, how long have we been sleeping? Give me all the answers. I think that's what voters want, is like this idea of this Baba, you know, and they'll just keep buying into this. And they'll buy into it until they're tired of spending money on it, until they're tired of investing in it. And then they just walk away from it. This is the mindset that I think candidates need to have, is like, stop looking at these parties as kind of the Baba, right? Like, how much more can I do for you? What will you get me? I think when we get below the surface, I really do. I think when we get below the surface, we find that that's where a majority of the people are at. This is where they're at. And so as a candidate, Marissa, I want to ask you this. You're in Minnesota. You're in the heartland of the United States. Obviously, there's a lot of left, a lot of right, just like anywhere. I think a place like Minnesota represents the true pulse of America, right? Where there's you have a big division, but ultimately there's left, there's right, there's different people. Let me ask you this question. What do you think the people in the middle, what do you think they're saying in Minnesota today?
Yeah, they're very, from just talking with people throughout the campaign and paying attention to local, it's taking a less extreme social position, so much more moderate. And when I ran, because it was nonpartisan, I could see the data of who like responded that they supported, and it was about half Democrat, half Republican. So because I am more socially liberal, like not everybody, and I stay off some of these hot buttons, but I just let people live how they're going to live, right? There's only so much. And financially, that really matters, because you want to give people autonomy and let them live life on their terms and have enough to give to their families and to give back to the community. So that was really my focus, was reducing property taxes, because county commissioner sets property taxes. So
really?
Yeah. Yeah, and that funds things like the sheriff's department, justice system, stuff like that.
Mhm.
So yeah, just being fiscally responsible, like how we would manage our own homes. We got to make the numbers work. I'm a single mom. I'm an expert at making the numbers work.
Marissa, would you come to Texas and set our property tax for us?
Maybe I'll run against Ted Cruz for you.
Did you did you know that Texans pay more in property taxes than Californians?
But you guys don't have state income tax, right?
We do not. Think about this. The only way that a government can make money is through taxes and fees. We do not have a state income tax. So we don't make a lot of money in fees. So who's making the majority of this up? Property owners, right? So we pay more in taxes, property taxes, than almost any other state. I think only New York is higher. But also, did you also know that a business pays less in property taxes than most homeowners?
So if a home is owned as a business or an Airbnb,
I guess you could argue that.
pro tip.
I guess, there you go. See,
right on the spare bedroom. There you go.
there you go. And
Now,
I think that's what a lot of people are actually doing is they're
Yeah.
buying houses in the corporate name,
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And so they're
Yeah,
finding these loopholes.
I love these creative out of the box thinking. And I think, you know how you said the Baba, people are like, Baba, like, here's my power, help me. No, take your power back. Whatever the cards are, you find a way that you and your family are going to win. And people who think like that always come out on top. 10 out
They
of 10
really do.
times.
100%. Yeah, it is so true. And so let me ask you this. You built up a pretty big social media following. You've got a pretty sizable social media following. I do not. I have a little following on YouTube, but I don't focus myself. I don't put a lot of focus on Instagram and I don't do TikTok, all this other BS. But you do. So let me ask you, but you also dabble in politics, right? And you do investing in all sorts of stuff. Let me ask you this, Marissa. How does being an influencer, being a mom, doing the political thing, and being an investor and all this stuff, how does all of this play off of each other? How does it all come together?
I just kind of like live my life and share like my life on social media and fun moments. Like I posted a video, my son and I went roller skating. And so here I am out roller skating. Like just fun stuff. Because people like there's politics and there's arguing, and then you gotta have fun sometimes, right? And so I'm a little different than most like politicians. I'm at the point where it's like, come have fun. Like let's just have a good time. And what does it look like to have fun? Because like during COVID, everyone was stuck inside and just like on phones and screens. And let's go out in the real world and do things that are exciting and energize and connect with people.
100%. And I'll tell you, Marissa, by the way, if you want to win a political race right now, okay, you have to do one thing, and it may be very difficult for you.
Tell me.
You need to grow a beard.
What?
You need to grow a beard. Have you noticed how all these, especially on the Republican ticket, they're all growing beards now? Have you noticed this?
I have not. I thought it was just no shave November gone
No.
a little long.
Go back and look at JD Vance.
You're right.
Until JD started running in politics, he was this fat-faced like I am, fat-faced little baby-faced hillbilly. And look at Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz started getting into some competitive races. He grew a beard.
Well, they say beards are makeup for men. I'm wearing makeup. See, I got my
maybe I need to grow some beard, but
you look like you could grow a good one. Yeah.
You know what's funny? I cannot grow a beard. I cannot.
What about mustache, goatee, something?
I can kind of grow a little bit of a goatee, but for some reason I just don't have this genetics to grow a beard. I just don't have it. I don't have it. So I guess I can't run for office because I can't grow a beard. But I'm 43 years old and I can't grow a beard, right? But let me ask you this real quick. So and I don't want to keep you too long here, but how do you build this following? How do you build? Is it people hear me talk a lot about this on the show and on the YouTube, especially that in an increasingly artificial world, it's more important to be genuine. Is that what you rely on to, because you seem like a pretty genuine person. Is that what you rely
Yeah.
on a lot?
Yeah, I just started posting things and being myself and like putting myself out there. And yeah, that's really all I did was being consistent and getting
Hmm.
out there. And yeah, and having fun
Marissa,
and
let
being
me ask you
silly.
this. Yeah, let me ask you this. So this is kind of a deeper question, and I like to ask this of all my guests. What core values drive you as a person?
Mm. Yeah, I know right away. So I'm big into numerology. What day of the month were you born?
October.
October.
No, the 16th. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So 16, 1 plus 6 is 7. 7 is often loner energy. They kind of keep to themselves, but they are the smartest number there is. So Stephen Hawking was a 7. Kind of puts
Really?
that.
Really?
Yeah, the smartest number. Like G is the seventh letter. G is the genius. So I'm big into numerology. So you're
Okay.
probably very smart and you kind of just like mind your own business, do your own thing. And is this sounding somewhat
Depends on
accurate?
depends on the who you ask, right?
Yeah,
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 for sure though. Yeah. I tell
yeah.
people I'm an introverted extrovert.
Yes, you can turn it on when you want to.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
But about these core values, numerology and what
Ah, so
drives you?
so I'm a 6. So I was
Yeah.
born the 24th of August. A 6 is the number of home and family. And so, what ultimately drives me more than anything is I value home and family. And I ran on, like, my slogan when I ran was like rebuilding safety through family values, right? Property taxes, home, right? If you have money to invest in your family, your kids, buy groceries, that's your home. That's where you're building a stable. So, I'm a single mom now, but the next phase of my life is going to be having my own family and moving on to what that looks like, right? My life partner, getting married, having more kids. So that's my core value and what really drives me. And sixes can't be happy truly, like, or feel that's like part of their purpose in life. So
Mhm.
that's, yeah, when it comes down to the core of me, that's what it is.
What
Yeah.
about habits? What about habits? Like you're pretty successful. I mean, that you've got a business going, you've
Yeah.
got a strong influence. What habits do you have? You say consistency, but how do you stay consistent? What habits help you stay consistent?
Yeah. So the habits themselves, because 90 some percent of your life is your subconscious habits. So I've intentionally built in habits like as part of my systems, whether it's the groceries I buy, the food I eat, the gym I go to, the quarterly goals I set, the everything is like systematized. So it takes the thinking out of things. So I have space to think about vision and like creative forward movement.
Interesting. Very interesting. One of my habits, I eat the same thing for breakfast every single morning.
Do you really? What do you eat?
I do. I eat two of the Little Debbie oatmeal cream cookies for breakfast
I
every
had
single morning.
those oatmeal cream. People love some oatmeal
I,
cream.
I love it. I eat these every single morning. I have two of them with my coffee every single
Since
morning.
how long? What started the habit for you?
You know, probably when I was about in college, I guess, probably about 18, 19 years old. It
Okay.
was just something quick and simple to get a little sugar, get a little carbs, get going, right? I didn't
Yeah.
realize this at the time. But I did. I started this and I'm 43 now, and I literally eat these two things every single morning, and that's how I start my day. And
Oh.
it's been that way no matter where I'm at in the world, because it's the one thing that I can count on no matter
Mm.
where I'm at in the world is a good, quote unquote, good breakfast. Yeah.
Ah, it's stability. It feels like
Hmm.
sweetness and stability.
It totally does. Yeah, totally. 100%. And you can always usually get them through customs when you're traveling or whatever it is you're doing, and nobody gives it a second thought. So yeah, yeah. And I like to think I'm a pretty regimented person. Like I do things at the same time every single day. Like I go to
Yeah.
sleep at the same time every day. I wake up at 4:30 every single morning, go to bed at 10 o'clock.
4:30,
Yeah, yeah. 10 o'clock every night. Yeah.
like
It's
military
this
time.
it's the same thing every single day. And these little habits go a long way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think I've found that running a campaign, Marissa, running a political campaign, those habits are more important than anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this real quick in closing here, because I know you got some other stuff to do here. But real
Yeah.
quick, what would you want people to take away from this podcast? What would you want them to know? What would you want them to walk away from this? If they think this has been a 30-minute podcast of two people rambling, I'm glad that's what they think. But leave it on a good note. What do you want people to know? What do you want somebody to take away from this whole conversation?
Yeah. The Baba thing rings in my head. No matter who's in office, you are ridiculously in charge of your own life, and you get to define what winning looks like, success, and yeah, just take your power back. Don't give it to the Baba, right? You can't control who's going to get elected, but you can control your life, your habits, and what you're going to allow and create in your own life.
That's great. That is
Yeah.
so good. And Marissa, how do people connect with you if somebody wants to connect? Do they
Oh,
I'll link your TikTok and Instagram and all that stuff in the description.
yeah.
But is that the best place to connect
Yeah,
with you?
I've got all my social media, and I'd love to have people join me. It's going to be an adventure until I run in 2026, and it's going to be fun.
You know what? I'm excited for it. I always tell people I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican. At this point, I really don't care about the issues. I care about good people.
Yeah.
If you're good people, I'll vote for you.
Yeah.
At
Yes.
this point, we've all heard the issues.
Mhm.
I think we're tired of the issues. I think the issues. This is what I tell my candidates: issues are for old people. It's true. Issues are for old people. And one thing that we have to remember is for politics is like science. For science to change, you need to have a few more funerals. Politics is the same way.
Ooh. Oh, funerals.
Political funerals. Yeah. Yeah. Think about that.
Yeah.
Think about that. And the only way that things change is when the older generation finally dies off and the younger people, the older generation who are hung up on the issues die off. You have their funerals and then we move on. And that's when these great ideas can take place.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
to have a few, just like they call them scientific funerals. We need to have a few more of these political funerals where these old ways die off and the younger minds can come in here and start thinking. And until then, how do we make that happen? Great
Yeah.
personalities. Young people vote personality,
Yeah.
not issues.
Ah.
Think about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Marissa, it's been great talking to you.
Thanks, Matt.